Hey everybody, it's Inigo. I wanted to do an episode today about foreign policy. I was going to just do an episode about Myanmar, which is in the news, and like I always said, if a country pops up in the news that Anderson Cooper or somebody's telling you the U.S. needs to be involved and concerned about, that means that they're lying to you about why and most likely what's happening. So, Um, when I heard Myanmar, the first thing I thought about was this guy. Hold on. Where is he? There he is. Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain, the late great travel food guy. Um, and the reason is he had a couple shows. He had No Reservations, which was a show on the Travel Channel, which I liked a lot. And then he did a show for CNN called I don't know, Unknown or something, Destinations, whatever the fuck it was. But when he got on CNN, I started to notice that the shows he was doing were in countries that the U.S. State Department, government, military apparatus would want to sell to the American people that there's either a struggle or we're helping the country, or just kind of put it on the map and put it into people's heads. So if you watch the episode of this show with him in it when he goes to Myanmar, it's in the backdrop of Obama's visit to Myanmar. Now, again, this was during the beginning of Obama's administration. Myanmar, which was Burma, and when it was under British rule, just like anything else, when it got out of British rule after World War II, the military took over, and they've had power for, I don't know, half a century at this point, up until a couple years before Obama went there. There was a leader of what they have, their Democratic Party. I'm not going to try to butcher her name, but this lady on the left, she was on house arrest for most of the time prior, and she became the leader of the country. Now, the way the government's set up there is because, again, it's not coming, and this is the thing Americans forget, is most, if not all countries but America, don't come with the same origin story as we do. So their government was never really for the people, by the people. 25% of the seats in their parliament system automatically go to the military. They can control 3 branches of government. They control security and defense. And, of course, you have the Air Force, the military, and the Navy. And they kind of still run the country. You might remember Myanmar was in the news a couple years ago for their treatment of their Muslim population in the west of the country. So if you know anything about the history, after India partitioned up after British rule ended, Pakistan and Bangladesh were one country, and then Bangladesh broke off. So Bangladesh and eastern Myanmar, Burma, is very Muslim. The rest of the country is mostly Buddhist. So there was a major military crackdown, ethnic cleansing of the Muslim population in the west of the country. And, of course, the U.S. media was denouncing it, but also at the same time covering their girl here and saying that, the military doesn't have has the control of the country, and she's not really in control, and there's nothing she can really do, which is kind of true when you look through the lens of the way that the country is run. And even when you listen to Mr. Bourdain talk about it in his show, he's saying, the people are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. in the military to crack down and take over. So the story that is now in the news is that, now get this is fun for any American to listen to, I think. Back in November, they had an election. And there were, November 8th, they had an election. And there were irregularities in the election. Sounds familiar? And the military used that as a reason to come back in and put Aung San Suu Kyi back under house arrest, and move back into the military control of the country. So the West is calling it a coup. The Chinese are calling it a cabinet reshuffle, quote unquote. And so that's why you're seeing it in the news. Much like a Syria situation, this is another situation where the United States, quote unquote, opened up the country to the West a couple years ago. They put their lady in. She won a Nobel Peace Prize or a Nobel Prize of some kind, and everything was great, and the country was on the up and up with capitalism and U.S. interests and foreign interests and Applebee's and McDonald's. But of course, it's not anywhere near America. And there might be influence from China. So now China has, I would think, some influence in this happening, and the military taking back control over, and them saying, the Chinese, oh, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it. Don't mind the phone, sorry about that. Now Japan also had again, because Japan is a client state of the United States, Japan had an interest with the government that was overthrown, so they're upset. And so now the international community is really getting involved, because the government that was running this country, which is strategically on the Bay of Bengal and up to the Chinese border, is in flux. So now you're going to start seeing it on CNN. I know Biden is speaking to the Department of State today. And as of right now, actually, he said some good things about Yemen, which I'll speak on in a couple minutes. But I just wanted to give you a little backstory on Myanmar and why it's in the news and what it is. You might not even know what Myanmar is. You might not even know that it used to be Burma. They're not going to tell you that. So it went to the UN, and the UN could not condemn the coup because, of course, China and Russia asked for more time because they have their own interests and they're pushing back against the U.S. Just as much like Azerbaijan and the Armenia situation, where no good guys on any side. I was reading about the refugees of close to a couple million Muslim. I can't pronounce this word. It starts with an R, but that's their tribe. And they were interviewed about the ouster of this lady, and they were like, "Well, we really have no feelings out her." She kind of said, "Oh, when she was leader, she acted like she really didn't have any power, and she didn't really she actually, came to the defense of the military's crackdown." But which would make sense if she has no real power. So that's what you're seeing in the news, and just be weary of, any sob stories and picking a side, and understand that just because the U.S. is getting involved and the country's opening back up doesn't mean it's automatically good. It also means that it's not automatically bad. It could be good. But this lady and the U.S. military and industrial complex does not want to save the people of Myanmar. They want to enclose China in what Trump has called Obama called the, not redirection, but the move to focusing on China and Russia and away from the Middle East. And this is another spot that is now going to be in flux under the Biden administration. Okay, so moving on real quick, just wanted to hit on a couple other things. This just came in. Biden will announce an end to the U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's offensive operations in Yemen today. And that's what his National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said. Jake Sullivan, we all know, from Hillary Clinton's group of thinkers. He's the one that sent Hillary Clinton the email that said, when they were talking about Syria, that he said, Al-Qaeda is on our side in this one. And he just went about his day. He didn't go, oh my God, treason, and run the other way. But Sullivan said it is going to announce an end to American support for offensive operations in Yemen. So now we can turn that around and say that anything the Houthis do in Yemen can be seen as an offensive threat to the Saudis and U.S. interests, and then we can defensively attack the Houthis and fight because they are supported by the Iranians. That's the narrative that you're going to hear. More active and engaged role in diplomacy, bring the end to the conflict of Yemen. So let's see. Hopefully that's good news. But I wouldn't, I'm not going to start jumping up and down as we scroll down one paragraph. Sullivan said it would not include U.S. operations against Al-Qaeda. It does not extend to actions against Al-Qaeda. It extends to type of offensive operations that have participated civil war in Yemen and has led to this humanitarian crisis. So the Saudis can still bomb Al-Qaeda. We can still have our drones bombing Al-Qaeda, and we can still have our terror war in Yemen and do that, and then just call the Houthis in league with Al-Qaeda and continue our fight. So that's what they left open. So we'll see what happens there. At the same time, the State Department has said they have no decisions on making a withdrawal from troops in Afghanistan. Report requested by Congress says the U.S. should stay in Afghanistan. So they're backing off that timeline, and Biden's getting some pushback from members of both parties on that. Also, he's backing off his Trump's idea of removing troops from Germany. So not much good news coming. And then we have this psycho. Biden's pick for Pentagon Mideast desk bragged that U.S. owns Syrian oil territory. And I guess we'll just play this if I can find the video of this moron. I guess Ben Norton maybe will have it. There she goes.
Still had compelling forms of leverage on the table to shape an outcome that was more conducive and protective of U.S. interests. And we identified 4. So the first one was the 1/3 of Syrian territory that was owned via the U.S. military with its local partner, the Syrian Democratic Forces. Now, this was a light footprint on the U.S. military, only about 1,000 troops over the course of identified 4. So the first one was the 1/3 of Syrian territory that was owned via the U.S. military with its local partner, the Syrian Democratic.
So there you go. Owned. We invaded, we took over, so we own it. So this is what you're getting with Biden. You're getting a return to the Obama era foreign policy, where we disguise it in liberalism and humanitarianism and women running the State Department, but it all ends with a bullet and a drone. Yeah. All right, so that's all I wanted to speak on today. I wanted to get something out on Myanmar as the story develops and stay ahead of the lies and the propaganda. All right, so this has been Inigo. I appreciate you guys coming by for a couple minutes, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.